Welcome to the third video in our series here. This video is going to be about organization, specifically more complex organizational structures and how to help your clients with them. So students coming out of high school, as previously mentioned, will have a sort of different expectation for what college level writing looks like. And often the structure they will be most familiar with is a sort of 5-paragraph essay. While this essay structure is not really appropriate for college level writing, we can definitely modify the basics of a 5-paragraph essay to sort of create a longer or more complex structure. So, in relation to that, there will still be many of the same parts throughout forms of writing and like the 5-paragraph essay. So most papers will still contain an introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion. They may be called different things. And then specific types of assignments may also include things like an abstract methods, results, and discussion section for experimental and scientific research papers, or literature reviews, which are sort of extensive looks at other people's literature or works. In order to organize these body paragraphs, your clients may have a variety of ideas for how to go about that, and you may have a variety of ideas on how to help them. The most important thing is that longer format papers may need several body paragraphs about the big ideas, each with its own subtopic. In the brainstorming phase, it may be a good idea to group those body paragraphs together by which part of the prompt they answer or by maybe chronological order. So chronological could look like historically based. So if they're writing a paper about historical events, they start with the most distant and go to the most recent. It may look like the order of the plot. So if they're writing about a book or even something like writing about a research paper, they can go in the order that the work that they're basing their own writing off of goes in. An alternate method may be by the order of questions in the prompt. So if a professor has given a student a prompt with several questions, they can choose each of those questions. That can be its own section in the paper, each of those questions. Finally, they may go by modes of writing. So they could organize it, the first part being a summary, then an analysis. We will also discuss more about summary versus analysis versus synthesis later in a different video. Um, all right, so let's go into some examples using that example prompt. So just a reminder, this is what our example prompt is. Throughout our class, we have read several literary criticisms of the Hunger Games. Using one of these readings as well as outside sources, please answer the following questions in a 5-page paper. How does the government in the Hunger Games compare to historical dictatorships? What tactics does President Snow use to control both the districts and the capital? What purpose do the actual games serve? So let's look at some ways that we could potentially help a client organize this prompt in a brainstorming phase. So for chronological order, we could go by the plot. So the first section of the student's paper may look like the beginning of the book. And within that, there might be 3 paragraphs. Gale and Katniss going into the forest, and that may talk about the significance of the fence and the way that the districts are controlled by removing a possible source of food through hunting. Then they may have a paragraph, or A and B may be the same paragraph, that is about sort of the descriptions of how the author describes District 12. And maybe in this part, they could start bringing in those outside sources, those historical sources, those modern day sources, and talk about what descriptions of real world places look like under fascist regimes. And then maybe the final paragraph in this section would be about the reaping itself, and this could talk about what purpose the actual games serve. So then maybe their second section of this chronologically ordered paper would be about the capital. So the first part may be about, this could be its own paragraph, how the children chosen for the Hunger Games are treated by the capital citizens. And they could relate this to something like dehumanization and talk about how that's a control tactic used in the capital, especially. What are the citizens of the capital like? And that once again you could talk about the control tactic question there. And how does the capital react to the games? And that's once again going back to that question about the purpose the games serve. And then maybe the final section of their paper would be about the ending of the book and basically Katniss's rebellion and how does that reduce President Snow's control. And once again, that would answer that control question. So this would be one way potentially that you could sort of outline in the brainstorming phase the body of a paper. But let's look at an alternative method. I think this tends to be the easiest way and the most simplistic way to go about answering a prompt like this, which is by question. So each of those questions will have its own section, and within that section, there will be subtopics with their own paragraph. So the first section may be that question, how does the government in the Hunger Games compare to historical dictatorships? And their paragraphs may be a description of the districts, a description of the capital, and the response to the rebellion. And then they may go into the tactics and they may talk about dehumanization, reliance on the government, and resource distribution. And then for the third question, they may talk about the purpose for the districts and the capital. So you see here we have all of the same ideas in the chronologically ordered paper, same ideas, different order, and sort of different groupings. So I hope that totally makes sense to you who are watching. And that is the end of this video.